Is it true, would you say it's true that the state and NYSERDA and all relevant agencies are not incentivizing solar development on farmland?
I would say, thank you for the question. I appreciate it. I would say, and as someone who has worked in this industry for decades at this point, this has been an evolution of both recognition of the impacts, potential impacts of solar on farmland, but specifically the ways that we can avoid, minimize, and mitigate those impacts. You heard Commissioner Ball note of the fact that one of my very first stops was at his farm, where we spoke in depth about solar issues and siting issues, and in fact have put into place a number of activities that are progressing over time to not only I would say build the frameworks that will be necessary to avoid in the first instance, and that includes new and expanded provisions within our solicitations that are taking shape, but also the ways in which, building on the Climate Action Council's work, we can better be aware of issues of farmland protection and agricultural issues in general. So we are active participants in every working group that the Commissioner has formed, and really have seen the developers respond, because what we have learned is that not only does our buying power, but our commitment to responsible development yield results. It takes some amount of time, and I would say it remains an area of top focus.
Thank you. I think the commissioner who was here just before you said, for every 1 acre of farmland that is being built on, we're saving one. I would argue that is woefully too few, because that still means we're halving the amount of farmland that we have. And in the Build Ready program, that is an incentive program for solar development. Currently, farmland is included in that program. If we're not working to incentivize farmland for development, why is farmland still in that program? And I will say we have a bill that we passed in this legislature nearly, I think, unanimously, and it was vetoed. And it's a little bit confusing to me. If we're not incentivizing farmland, why are we keeping farmland in an incentivization program? So can you speak to that?
Certainly. So the Build Ready program is really focused on siting and underutilized land. Every project that we are advancing thus far is consistent with that framework. We don't have projects that are advancing in protected farmlands in the first instance, and really it remains a top priority of ours to work on brownfields, industrial sites, and other underutilized land.
For the sake of time, I would argue that part of that is just not happening. I mean, I've got communities that are losing over 10% of their land with very few sited projects on them. We are losing farmland at a clip. And I met with a dairy farmer yesterday who has been approached not once, not twice, but 8 times by a solar developer to buy his land. And now, because of the challenges, both federally, but also here in the state, he's actually giving in and selling it, and he threw them off his land the first few times. So I think we have a much bigger role to play in the state, your agency included, to make sure that the words that we're saying about protecting farmland is actually what's happening in the execution.